The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back. Mets in the Zone. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and the two co-hosts are here. I just play a minor part in all of this. Robert Cole, how are you?
Doing good, Ralph. Thank you.
Good. And Marty Rose, Mert.
Hey, Ralph.
My boyhood friend.
Yes, still here.
Were you in the class with Beth Henschel? Do you remember her?
The name sounds familiar. I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
Many years ago.
She's my Facebook friend, and I thought you might paths might have crossed. You might have remembered, but you didn't. Anyway, let's talk about some Met baseball. How about that? I want Robert, if he would, to put on his umpire cap, and you were an umpire. How many years, Robert?
23.
Wow. Were you ever faced in a game with the instance Oliver Perez pitching the other day, and there was mass confusion? And would you try to put that into perspective for us?
Sure. Okay, number one, different leagues have a different rule. Okay, the professional baseball rule, of course, is what was used yesterday. Okay. And the way that works is when a team wants an appeal a play, such as yesterday, they wanted to appeal Dominic Smith leaving third base early on a fly ball.
Right.
What has to happen is the umpire puts the ball in play. Okay. The pitcher gets on the rubber. The umpire puts the ball in play. The pitcher then steps off. Okay. That's a live ball. The ball is live. Okay. Anything can happen. What the Mets did was Buck Showalter had J.D. Davis, who was on first, take off for second. The reason why he did that was he was hoping they would make the play on Davis and get him out, just in case the umpires ruled that Smith had left early. Okay? Once a play is made, you can no longer appeal. Okay? So Oliver Perez, 20 years in the major leagues, okay, was confused. Okay, he started to make the play at second, and then he stopped, and then he went to throw the ball to third base. Well, J.D. Smith did not leave early. Okay, but what people forget is that it's a live ball. A live ball means the other runners can run if they want to at their own peril.
Okay, that explains it. Amazing. The guy with the most experience in the big leagues, Oliver Perez, had a brain fart, basically. Well, and it just goes to show you, though, I have so much respect for Showalter being in the game and his experience and what have you. Great call.
Yeah, it was. And it's amazing how many ball players don't really know the rules. Okay, a lot of them don't know the rule about, if there's a runner on first and you strike out and the catcher drops the ball, okay, well, if there's less than 2 outs, okay, you can't advance, But if there's 2 outs, then you can. So, it's rules like that.
Good. What was in your umpiring career, what was the most interesting and/or challenging, questionable play that stands out in your mind that you dealt with?
Well, I never made a mistake, Ralph. So, I mean, there's,
Of course not. Just like you never make a mistake in podcasting, in scheduling when the podcast is going to be and sleeping through it, you never have that trouble. So I can...
Probably the biggest one for me was a playoff game, a district playoff game. The score was a one-run game, was the bottom of the seventh inning, which in a high school game is the last inning. Okay, the home team was down by one run, bases were loaded, 3-2 count on the batter. Okay, and I was dreading that next pitch. I was praying the guy would swing, and he did. Okay, because I didn't want to have to make that call.
Right, and that stands out in your head.
What's that? I'm sorry?
That stands out in your mind all these years later.
Yes,
wow.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Okay. Let's get on with it. Thank you for that clear explanation and increasing my respect level for Buck Showalter. Something to be said for good old-fashioned experience. And I don't know if Rojas would have acted in the same manner. We'll never know about that, but couldn't have done worse. Couldn't have done better. Let's put it that way. So hats off to him. Hats off to Perez for surviving 20 years in the big leagues on his stuff. So sometimes being a lefty really helps. Anyway, let's talk about a damn good week that the Mets have. Want to hear your voice, Mert. What impressed you about last week?
Well, obviously the starting pitching has been better than anybody could have expected. I believe that their combined earned run average is like 1.04 after 10 games. It's like without DeGrom, it's just phenomenal. And it's if the relief pitching was like a tad better than it's been, their 7-3 record could be even better. But we can't complain. When you take 2 out of 3 of every series, that's as good as you can expect, and that's what they've been doing.
That is true. The big C, COVID, comes up again in our lives as a society. It's not really over, and yet the two most productive setting the table guys were affected by it. And what gets me, and we talked about this off air, I think there's a certain amount of responsibility that a major league player should have, and that's to not be a sociopath. But don't be so sociopathic, because you might spread something to somebody who takes another player, a fan, takes it home to his kid, and his kid can get seriously sick because they haven't approved vaccines that people aren't even taking that have been approved. It's a crazy world we're living in. And I had the thought this afternoon, and Marty confirmed it, that there's a possibility that this can screw up yet another year. Robert, what do you say?
Well, first of all, we can't be too quick to accuse guys that we don't know whether they're vaccinated or not. I don't know if you saw what I posted privately to you guys, that Steve Gelbs, one of the announcers, announced that he tested positive for COVID today, and he is vaccinated. In fact, he has 3 shots, the 2 Modernas and a booster.
I'm not accusing Geltz or anyone else of this, but there is an awful lot of people who buy phony certificates. I'm not talking baseball people. I'm talking people in life who try to skirt the issue by buying phony vax certificates over the internet for $10, and which I think is unbelievable. If you're going to take the time to do that, go in and get a vaccine. I mean, we never questioned the polio vaccine. I don't know, Robert, were you in the service or not? But Mert and I were, and we were vaccinated, stood in line, and didn't have any question about what was being put into our bodies. We knew that our best interests have always been handled by science. And somehow, Trump, who started it, our society is mixed up. Science has been questioned, and I'm just afraid for the validity of another season, because you brought another thing into it before, Mert. You said that these teams that travel to Toronto, for instance, right. They may not be able to take the unvaccinated players with them. Am I correct?
Not may. They cannot. Okay, it's against the law for anybody to go in there unvaccinated. You have to show proof of vaccination. And
so that said, is it not the common sense thing to do, or the uncommon sense, as it turns out, to do and get the players and the management together and agree that they can't play unless they're vaccinated? Pure and simple.
I think that would be a big hurdle, because the Players Association is not going to, jump on that and force the players or agree to have all the players vaccinated. That's personal choice.
Then they should be disbanded then, because money isn't the only thing unions are supposed to fight for. One of the things is working conditions. And it's up to the players who are vaccinated, who have some common sense, to force the union itself to stop screwing around with their lives and the lives of their kids, for instance. Like I said before, they could spread it to another player who takes it home to his family. And a lot still isn't known about the long-term effects. And it just throws a monkey wrench in it all. That's the way I see it.
Well, to me, if somebody's not vaccinated and they have to miss a game strictly because of that, then they should not get paid for that game. Like, take 162 fraction of their salary and withhold it for every game that they miss because they're not vaccinated.
And if that doesn't seem like a lot, a fraction of 160, that could be hundreds of $1,000s right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Thousands, no question.
Yeah. It is just the people that make decisions in baseball, which is a microcosm of life, and life itself, make me question my lifelong thing. I want to live, I said, all these years. I'd like to see how it all turns out. Well, you know what? I don't have the guts to see how it all turns out. Right. I mean, right now I'm handling it. Well, you know what I mean. It's de-incentivizing to want to live a long time. Although, ask me tomorrow and I'll say I want to live a long time.
Well, in fact, it's been proven that during this COVID couple of years that the life expectancy in the United States has gone down.
Will to live is very, very important. Mind over matter, that type of thing. And people are just going, wow, this is an awful lot of a burden. You know, some people say that God doesn't let you take things that He knows you can't handle. Well, this questions that for sure, with all of us under the best of circumstances. Crazy world. Okay, guys, let's talk baseball. Let's go around the horn a little bit. You know, I'll start with around the horn. The most effective DH in baseball, that's a lot of teams, is a guy who didn't want to be a DH, and I'm not sure that he still doesn't. Alonso, what a week.
Yeah.
Marty?
Yeah, well, that's true. He said he didn't want to be a DH, but I believe that every game he's been a DH so far, he's homered.
Right. With an unbelievable amount of ribbies, and boy, I wish Nemo and Cano, Cahill, whatever, were here, because the lineup is doing beautifully. Even Dom Smith got an RBI the other day, and so looks good. Dom Smith is the question. Would you, if pitching if getting pitching became a necessity, would you have any trouble packaging him? Guys?
I wouldn't.
No.
For the right deal, no. You know,
But right now, his trade value has gone down. You know, you got to play him and hope he gets hot.
Right. But they played him not in one position, not in one situation. They've given him a lot of at-bats. He's played in virtually all the games. I wish he would, because he had a great spring. And then he was yakking that I don't want to play, I want to play full time, blah, 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 for a while. I don't think that helped him. Anyway, on to second base, and I want to tell you, McNeil's quite a ball player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's doing great. He's been playing a good outfield too. He's been defensively, he's been playing very well, and he's, since they stuck him in the leadoff spot with Nimmo being out, he's done really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's back hitting the way he did a couple of years ago. You know, hitting it all over the field, not just be trying to pull the ball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
And by the way, Ralph, okay, yesterday was Doug Flynn's birthday, the real Doug Flynn.
Dougie Flynn. The guy that I think, Guillermo, he's not hitting worth a damn, but he's a good ball player too, and he'll come around. Doug Flynn brings back memories of the Seaver trade, and we need to talk about how good it made us all feel I haven't even talked to you about this, guys, but I know it to be true. Looking at that statue and seeing film with the unveiling and what have you, it was nice. Nice.
Yes.
No, it's beautiful. What a crowd. They had a huge crowd there. I mean, unbelievable. 20 people deep or more around there when they did that. It was great. Really good.
Yes. And it looks good too. No time was spared on it. It took a long time, and it was nice, very nice. Wow. Good moment.
It was a nice weekend. You know, it was a nice weekend, Ralph, because on Saturday they did a thing for Gil Hodges, and they had Gil Hodges' family there. So it was a very nice weekend.
Hey, Mert, I did something over the weekend that made me reminded me of you. I did a thing on, I'm doing a regular thing now on Sports Byline. And Sports Byline has all kinds of affiliates. One of them is Armed Forces Radio. So I was on Armed Forces Radio talking to all the troops.
Wow.
And I remember, tell me the story again, Bart, how the 1969 season was spent for you over there. And you got your information from Armed Forces Radio.
Right.
And,
well, they did broadcast quite a few games, you know.
Right.
So I mean, there was a 12-hour time difference. So when I was working in the morning, they had the radio on, and we're listening to, baseball, whatever game they were broadcasting, a night game. I don't remember what night it was, but I mean, we're sitting there in the daytime working and listening to Armed Forces Radio, at night, which was great. And they did have the playoff games on and the World Series. So, the World Series being played in the daytime in 1969, I had to stay up all night.
I remember that after the first game, you didn't do that, if I remember correctly. They lost the first game,
right?
And you didn't stay up that night.
I listened to the first game. They lost, and everybody was saying how Baltimore was going to kick their ass, And Seaver, I guess, lost the first game. So
right.
the second night, 2 nights in a row, I can't stay up all night. So I didn't. Then, by the time the third game came around, I stayed up again, and they won. And then I stayed up the rest of the other games all night. Listen, laying in my bed with the earplug in my ear, and laying down, listening to the game, and then when they finally won, when they won that game 5, I went out and celebrated. I went out to breakfast in the chow hall,
Yeah, believe me, when you're hungry, the chow hall's a good meal.
I took my salt pill and had my hamachi or whatever they had there. It was oh God. But anyway, Armed Forces Radio was very good. They played nice music, in the daytime, whatever was popular at that time in the 60s. It was good, and of course they played We Got to Get Out of This Place several times a day.
I told you we'd get a break. from either tech school or basic. Must have been tech school, and we go over to the BX and we put 20 cents in the jukebox, and that's what we play. That when you're in the service, no matter where you are and what you're doing, you got to get out of this place. It would behoove you. But I didn't say that to the Armed Forces Radio. No. I just made note of the fact that I was in the Air Force, and it was pretty thrilling for me. That's great. That's nice. Anyway, Robert, I want to hear your voice a little bit. What are you happy with? What are you disappointed in?
Well, although the bullpen has blown the 3 games that the Mets have lost, okay, we've had a couple of guys, Chasing Shreve and Smith, who are pitching very well. And, they should be getting a little bit more of the high leverage spots.
Right.
The thing I'm disappointed about is Lugo.
Lugo, yes. Is his arm hurt, or is he just fatigued? Have they interviewed him?
I haven't heard anything, but it's so early in the year. I guess I wouldn't write the guy off now.
No, not yet.
I think you just got to find the groove and get the feel. Maybe when the weather warms up a little bit, it's been very cold, and it's even snowing in a good part of the country today.
You're right.
In a lot of places, and even if they didn't get rained out tonight, it was still going to be in the 40s and chilly. So, a lot of these guys need the warm weather to feel better out there.
Yeah, and I think with Lugo, they find a couple of soft spots for him because he keeps putting him in high leverage situations.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. Hey, Lindor's doing much better than I thought he would be doing.
Well, he's a good player. He he was going to come around eventually, and I know. Last year, I guess being new here and trying to prove himself to everybody, but now he's comfortable, and the fans are the fans know what he is, and I think he's going to have a good career here.
Yeah, I do too.
Good. Catching. McCann's not hitting much. That worries me just a little bit. But what with the DH putting him down in the bottom of the order, it's a different ball game with the DH. No question about that. We're just going to have to learn to live with that for life.
Well, he's like a 230, 240 hitter anyway. He's not going to do much better than that. If he could throw runners out and be good behind the plate, that's basically what catchers do anyway. Except for very few that are good hitters. There are some, but not many.
Yeah. Makes you realize what we had with Piazza.
Yeah, really.
That was, he was unreal, really. And it might have been unreal, but we'll never know. Anything you guys thinking about, want to express, have predictions, worried about? Marty?
Not really worried about anything right now. I think, Walker will come back and be okay. McGill has been, unbelievable.
Unreal.
just, he's been put in the DeGrom role, and he's playing the role. I mean, it's not like the understudy to Bette Midler. He's like the real thing.
That's a great analogy, by the way.
Well, I just saw that episode. I just saw that Seinfeld episode a couple of days ago.
Yes, where she gets knocked on her ass, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I think the most, speaking of Seinfeld and the Mets, the Hernandez episode where they recreate the shooting at Kennedy was the most well-written piece of comedy on the air in our lifetimes. I don't know if Larry David had a part in that, or sure he had a part in that. Who had the bigger part, Seinfeld or David, or that was a collaboration made in heaven? Wow. And think about it. I laugh.
That show stands through all the time periods. I mean, you watch it now, and it's still funny. It's just it's just great.
Yeah. So is Curb Your Enthusiasm, by the way. I don't know if you're into that at all, but I'm amused by that, and very little else these days. So
right.
I thank you for your company, gentlemen. Show's always fun for me. Anything you want to say, Robert?
No, I think just say let's go Mets, and hopefully the next show we're still upbeat and happy.
Yeah, we were going to take a week off, but I just couldn't let this excellent week pass without talking about it. And thank God we have this.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens with 2 games in one day tomorrow being shorthanded. So
right, and
it's a 3:10 start, single admission, doubleheader.
Well, that makes me a little sick. From the standpoint of having a fan, being fan-friendly, that isn't very fan-friendly.
I don't know. It's, it's better than separate admissions,
Oh, is it one admission for both?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it is fan-friendly.
Yes. He did that last year too, Cone. He don't. I guess he didn't care for the split admissions. He's got it's a 3:10 start, regular old-fashioned doubleheader. It's one admission.
Beautiful, and one parking fee as well.
Exactly.
Right. Which has become an expense for the fan.
No question about it. Yep.
Yeah, Uncle Steve listens. He listens to the fans.
He does, yeah.
How many years did we have Wilpon? 30?
Yeah.
25?
Way too many.
Way too many.
30. It was probably 1980, right? So it was close to 40 years, I think.
Oh God.
Yeah.
And just a few years ago, he was talking about handing it down to his idiot son.
Right.
Yeah. So, which would have taken us out of the running for anything progressive. So,
definitely.
I love Steve. You have a memory of Steve, am I correct, Mert? A personal memory.
No.
Didn't you go to a board of directors meeting or something like that?
Not with Steve Cohen, no. I went to a meeting with Mike Bloomberg one time.
Okay. Oh, whoa. Well, we may have to save that for another podcast. That's some heavy content.
Yeah, I think I still have his business card someplace.
That's who it was. That's who it was.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The erstwhile presidential candidate.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. I confused that with Cohen. Confusion is my middle name. Ralph Tyko. Confusion is the last name, first name. All right, guys. Thanks for being you. Stay healthy. And if you're listening out there, thank you. We appreciate it. I hope we've entertained you and informed you. And it's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tyko. The hosts are Marty Rose and Robert Cole. Adios, everybody, and happy trails.
Good night.
Good night.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.